Hello, how is everybody doing? I hope you're all doing really well and enjoying the course so far. I know it's a bit different sometimes to be doing the course online like this, but I hope it's working for you. And I think that looking at a lot of the work, I think many of you are doing really well with this. I want to talk in this brief little lecture here about the project that you're doing. I modified it quite a bit. In the past, I've actually made it a little bit easier, I think, because in the past I've had people do a complete strategy project, and I like people to work on their own rather than groups, because I think that group projects tend to, as you well know, some people do the work and other people don't, so it becomes difficult to treat everybody fairly. This way, everybody works on their own. However, that makes for a lot of work, a lot of grading, a lot of feedback going back and forth. Before we even start with this, I'd like to say that it helps if you all, while you're doing the work on this project, the more often you send me things, that I get right back to you, I look at it, I fix it or comment on it, make suggestions, send it back to you. The more often you do that, and if you do that over and over again, as a matter of fact, then it'll really help you in terms of understanding what you're trying to do, but also get a really quality product. Some students do that a bunch of times, and others a few times, and many not only hand in at the last moment, and you really cannot do these slides well without some feedback. It's like everything else in life, practice makes perfect, and you don't go try to hit a 90-mile fastball without ever practicing, or tennis or anything else, and yet some people try that with business. Business is like anything else, you have to practice. So anyway, I'm going to go over this project a bit, and please do, while we're talking to this, look at the case, and then look at the 2 slide submissions. I've given you a case to work on. I think you should use that case. If you want to do something different, you may. However, if you use the case, it's there for you, and it structures it, and it kind of pushes you along the line you want. The main thing is to learn the process, not exactly to do something different from that. You learn a process you can repeat and use in other strategy things you're looking at the future, other new business development ideas, innovations, entrepreneurship ideas you have. The idea is to create a process that you can use repeatedly. So the case is there, and then I'm going to talk about the slides. Like I said, I've much reduced these from the former times I've taught this class, so you only have a few slides to do. They're key elements of this. They're not easy, but it's easier than doing the whole strategy project that I would normally ask for in this class. So you're lucky in that regard. Anyway, so first let's talk about the case. So do have the case, open it up, and then also have the first submission slides and the second submission slides available so you can look at them as we go along. So first, if we're looking at the case, you can see that this case is it's about a winery in California, and what they're trying to do is think of how can they expand overseas. And as you know, this is an international entrepreneurship class, so this is the exact kind of thing that you would be looking at if you were to try to apply the things that we've covered in this class. How do you take something you're doing now in our country or in wherever your home country is? How do you expand to another area? What do you look at? How do you see if that's a good idea? What are some of the key elements there that you consider? As most of you know, I've probably mentioned, is that almost all my career has been in international business, often working overseas or living overseas, and always in one way or another working internationally, whether here or in other countries. So this is what happens. This is how you do things, how you think of things. If we're doing it well here, can we expand? Can we go cross borders? Can we sell what we're doing locally in a new market? And in this case, you have this example of Bianchi Wines, where the owner is considering, after many years of domestic business, considering how would she expand to other markets. So it's a brief case. You can see there clearly what that's all about. And what I have asked you to do here is there are 6 or 7 countries that I've suggested you consider as your target country. You can use other ones, but these are ones I think they all are kind of lend themselves well to this discussion. I will say this: before you pick a country, do a little research on the wine environment in that country. Wine is super easy to research. Every country has tons of wine clubs and wine magazines and all kinds of statistics on importation, exportation, consumption demographics. It's completely available. Your phone and your other devices, not only for social media, you can find anything you want about the wine business in any country with quickly researching. So do that ahead of time, because often you might find yourself going down a path and you realize, this isn't going to work in this country. Now, I will say this: if your conclusion of your strategy is don't do it, that's fine, because saying no to an idea it saves you a lot of money and time. They say you pick one of these countries and you find out, our wine cannot be sold profitably in that country. It isn't that you've blown the assignment. It's a perfect assignment. You've done exactly the right thing by saying this won't work. So don't feel compelled to say this is going to work. A lot of times I'll read these and they'll say, we're very confident this will work. And you think, based on what? What you have to be able to support what you're saying, and you have plenty of facts to do that. So just before you choose a country, take a quick look at the wine environment in that country and see if it makes sense for a California wine company to be able to sell there. How you're going to sell is kind of up to you. You'll think about it. Obviously, the simplest way is to send barrels of wine to a country and have a local bottle and distributor there. You may do it differently. You may have open up wine bars. You may open up, who knows? But think about that too, and then that kind of leads you into some of the distribution angles, etc. And then in a case that you have the price of the wines, and then some basic facts on wine which are true. How many bottles you get out of an acre, which is a lot, and how much it costs. And there in this in one of the modules, there's a little bit on a P&L, and just be really clear that in U.S. and most places, wineries operate with about a 50% gross margin. That means that it's about, like, if a bottle of wine costs $30 in the store, it probably costs about $15 to make it, and then from there you have distribution, etc. costs. But it takes about half the cost of the wine to make it. And that means grow it, pick the grapes, squish them up and save them in barrels, and all that involved is about a 50% gross margin. So that kind of gives you a base for what you're doing, and you can kind of look at the other things about the Napa Valley, etc. But basically the case is simple. It's only a few pages, and you can get the idea. And again, the concept is you have a winery in California, it's doing well. You're thinking, for the first time, we're going to go overseas. What would that entail? Which of these 7 countries would we pick? And let's look at that. Okay, so that's it for the case. Then we'll look at the slides. The slides are provided for you, and there are not that many of them, but doesn't mean they're extremely easy. I picked out the ones that are really important for strategy. Most of my career, most of my teaching at FIU is based on strategy and strategy development, and of course the entrepreneurship, etc. But it's a lot about strategy, and so that's a key element. And the book that you see there and is about strategy, and that's what it just makes. It makes a lot of difference for you to think strategically in all you do. So I'm not having to do a whole strategic plan for this new company, but key elements definitely. Now again, the book is vital. There's everything. You see it in the slides and lectures, etc. But the book really lays it out for you, and these things that are a little bit difficult become manageable if you do that. I will say again, it's not easy. You have to practice, and you have to do it a few times. And the best way to practice is do it, send it to me, and we go back and forth. Think of me as your project manager in this. I'll help you. Let me help you. Give me the work so I can help. I don't want to just get it at 10 o'clock and then grade it when it won't be good, I guarantee you. So please send it back and forth as much as you can, and we can get there. Okay, now, you've opened up the new business project slides, the first submission, and you look there, and you'll see that the first slide is just give me your name. I can't tell you how many people send me slides without their name on there, which, of course I get tons of them, so it helps to have your name on there. And then the next slide is the executive summary. Now, a quick word about executive summary. Executive summary is kind of what it says. It's just a summary of what you're doing, but it's a pretty complete picture. You're going to say that we have this winery, and we picked this country, and we're going to do it this way. So in your executive summary, think about if all the rest of the slides were gone, would the person you're talking to have an idea what you're trying to do? Don't hide what you're trying to do in executive summary. The rest is to build up the thing and support it and show why it's a good idea. But the executive summary tells your idea. So it's got to be there. You got to name the country. You have to name how you're going to do it. You have to know why you're going to. That's the point of the executive summary. If you've ever had a boss that has a very short attention span and you have to tell them, in a couple sentences what you're going to do, otherwise you'll lose their interest, which is very common in business. How would you do that? So make sure the executive summary, and Google executive summary if you want, but basically executive summary is a snapshot, a small description of what you're doing, but it is a description of what you're going to do. Somebody has to be able to understand. It's not just to tease them. I mean, there's a teaser element. You're hooking them, but you're telling them what you're going to do. Okay? So then that's the executive summary. The next slide is on it's basically where did your idea come from? And you'll see on that slide, I give some words like issue, problem, opportunity. And remember we talked about the gap and what you see, how you come up with ideas. Many ideas are because you see something wrong, you see a problem, you see something you could fix, you see a gap between what should be and what is. So don't repeat all these words in this other word. There's a suggested word. So I'm just saying that because about half of you will do that. Even if I said not to that, you'll say, we see the following issue, problems. No, just whatever it is. So what's your situation at Bianchi Wine? You've been domestic for all these years. Now you see an opportunity to expand overseas. That's your gap. That's your domestic overseas. That's your gap. So you wanted to do something about that. So this led you to consider expansion in whatever country, and you think you could do the following thing. The case gives you the acreage that you have for this new venture. The case gives you how many bottles you produce per acre. So you may not sell 100% of them, but say you're going to do 80% or so, whatever. But you do have numbers there. Clearly, say we've got this many acres, this much. We think we can sell 70% or 10% or whatever it is, but it's right there for you. So in this new development idea, what's wrong? What are you trying to fix? What are you trying to do? And what do you think you can do because of that? Okay, that should be there. All right. Then we go to the business viability assessment. You have to read the book, the chapter, and you have to watch the lecture and also see the slides. The new business viability assessment is extremely important, and it's something, if you can learn how to use this all your life, you'll be able to apply this as a way to give a quick look at new ideas, new business. Say your friend comes to you and says, you know what, I'm thinking about opening a photography store or a flower shop, or I want to do an auto parts thing, or I want to go into landscaping, or you know what, I think I want to paint houses, or I want to be a consultant, or all those things. Okay, this will happen. Maybe you've thought them yourself. I want to open a restaurant. I want to open a brewery. I want to do this. I want to be a rocket scientist. Whatever it happens to be, these are ideas that people have all the time. How can you tell whether that idea has initial strength to be effective? Not to guarantee it's going to work, but how can you tell whether it has an initial legs, that it could work? It has a chance. It's through this business viability assessment. There's a separate lecture on that in the next module and also the slides, etc. But I'll just cover this a little bit right now. It's so important, and it's a little tool, but it's developed off a lot of research, primarily from a lot of work in that book, Good to Great. I took some of those concepts and made a tool out of it. But the way it is that you have a business and you have to be able to tell whether it's going to work, and you do it with a few simple things. If you look at that, you're looking at the slide now, I hope. You see your business idea on the left, and the next column over is proof of your commitment, passion, resources, etc. This is basically why you. Why you? Try to think of that. Why do you think you can be successful? For example, if you're going to open this, auto parts store, do you know anything about cars? Have you ever worked in an auto parts store? Do you understand where auto parts come from? Do you have relationships with auto parts manufacturers that help you retail? All those sort of things. You open a restaurant. Do you have the money to open a restaurant? It costs millions of dollars. Do you have a location? Do you have any experience? Do you have contacts in the industry? Do you know how it works? Have you worked your whole life? You could say, my family owned 3 restaurants. I've been working, first I was a busboy, then a cashier, then this. Now I'm a sous chef. I've been in this business all my life. And they're going to give me $600,000 to open okay, that's really good. That's why you. So a lot of times when people start talking about what they want to do, they cannot tell you why they can be successful at that. In this case, you have a wine business. Have they been in business? It's generational wine. They've been in business a long time. They have the products. They have the reputation. They have all kinds of things. So they have a lot going for them on the why you part. In that column, you put the things in bullet point fashion. Just list them. What is why you? Do you have the money? Do you have the product? Do you have the expertise? Do you have the experience? Do you have the contacts? Etc. That goes there. In the book and in the slides, there are examples of proof of commitment. Use them as starting points and work from there. The next column over is the drivers. Now, drivers are things that you can do to make sales go up. It's that simple. What can you do to make sales go up? What makes sales go up in a restaurant? The location, the reputation, the price, the chef, the quality of the food, word of mouth, advertising. These are the kind of things that make sales go up. What makes sales go up at a big box retail store like Walmart? Again, location, your product set, your size, their inventory. There are different things. Every industry has different things that drive their business. People in that industry know them and they work them. Many times for us, we think we know how things work and we don't. And you end up losing money and time until you find out what really makes the business go, what really are the drivers. That happens all the time to entrepreneurs. People don't research, they don't ask it, they don't listen. So you need to be able to understand what makes the business go. If you don't know, you have to research. If you don't know what makes it work, you have to research it. Again, look at the book, look at the slides. I provided you tons of drivers. Start from there and take out the ones you don't need. For example, one thing, price is always a driver. If you have a bottle of wine and it's $1,000, or here's a bottle of wine that's $5, here's another one 10, here's 20. Those things matter. Price matters because certain people want to spend more. They don't want to spend $1,000. Maybe they'll spend, they'll say, here's a bottle of wine for $40, here's one for $10. And right away they buy the one for $40 because they think it must be better. Price has a component. Other people say, look, I can't afford that. I want the best value for my $10, or I want other things. You could look at selling sneakers, the same thing. Some sneakers cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Others are much less. What are you going to use them for? Are they to show or are they to play? What are they really for? All those things matter. So whatever makes your business go up or up, those are drivers. Research them, know them, and start again with the ones that are in the book and in the slide. That way you have a starting point. I'm emphasizing this because rarely do people get this right at first, and there's nothing wrong with that. It takes time, it takes practice, but it's so important. Imagine if every time your boss says, I think we should expand our business to Texas. We're doing residential lending here in Florida. Let's try to Texas. What's our proof of commitment? Are we willing to fund that? Do we know what we're doing? Do we have experience? Do we have anybody in Texas to help us work? Do we know how the market works, etc.? Okay, that's your why you. Then the drivers. What is it about Texas? What are the unique things in Texas that make business go up or down in the residential commercial real estate space? I don't know. Well, then research them but once you do that, once you know whether you have the commitment, the resources, etc., and once you show that you really understand the drivers, you can figure out whether you have a business case or not, right? So that's how this works. Again, the best thing is do it, keep sending it back and forth until you get a hang of it. It's not easy, but it's so powerful, and you'll use this in all your life if you get it done. Okay, that's that slide. Now, the next one is the SWOT analysis. The SWOT analysis, I'll say this. If you use the book and look at the slides and hear the lecture, etc., but the book particularly, there is no, I've not seen a better description, a way to develop a SWOT analysis. People don't like doing SWOT analysis. They don't like to do it. They find them difficult. And they are. However, once it's kind of done, then everybody wants to jump in with their comments. They like talking about it because it's quite illuminating what you see. A SWOT analysis is kind of a snapshot of where you are right now as a company. And it's like, this is where you are today. You can fix things, but that's where you are. So you want to do a really good job with the SWOT analysis. Whenever you start a new venture, whenever you need to reevaluate where you are, a SWOT analysis is very important. Some key things. And again, I'll say this because rarely do people get this right at first, but and it's in your book. We've said it in a lecture before and also in the slides. But just to emphasize, strengths are positive internal factors. They're things that you have. In fact, they're very much like the second column on the business viability assessment. They're why you things. Let's look at something. Like, again, we'll go back. Well, let's stick with the wine thing. Okay, a strengths of your wine thing. What are your internal strengths? What does Bianchi Wines have themselves internally that helps them be successful? They have wine. They have a history. They have track record. They have a family connections. They have a family history. They have good management. They have all these things. They have it. One way to look at it is internal things are things that you have and that you need. And you go to weaknesses. They're also internal. They're things that you need, but you don't have. So that you ask, as you see in the book, the same questions to develop the strengths are there to develop the weaknesses. The difference is that you either have them or you don't. Like, say, for example, you're a football team, and you're competing. Like, say you're at the University of Miami, and you're competing, and what are your strengths? You have this reputation, etc. But you don't have any good players. Okay, so you need good players. So your strengths are reputation, this and that and the other. Your weakness right now is your players aren't very good. So if your players were good, they would move over to the strength side. There are things that you have them, and you need them, and either you do or don't have them. I hope that I know it sounds super easy, but when you start doing it, what people tend to do is they start mixing weaknesses and threats. Remember, strengths and weaknesses are internal. They're things you have or don't have that you need to be successful. Threats are external, as are opportunities. Threats and opportunities are external. You cannot control them. You don't have anything you can do. You can try to mitigate them, but you can't control them. So threats are external factors that you cannot control. One of the biggest ones is competition. If you open up a pizza store and somebody else opens up a pizza store right next to you, there's nothing you can do about it. What if there's one 2 blocks away that is super good? You can decide to move, but that's a fact. There's a lot of competition for pizza or for many things, and there is a lot of competition for wine. So it's always going to be competition. Then, like, say you're in California and you have all these wildfires. Remember Napa Valley 2 years ago, they had fires there. So you have a threat of environmental issues. In Florida, we have threats of hurricanes. In other places, you have different kinds of threats. Threats are things that you can't stop but you can try to mitigate them. If you're in Florida, you have a disaster recovery program. If you're in Napa Valley, you better have some irrigation type of thing that can put out fires, because things may happen. You can't protect yourself against everything, but things that are literal threats that you know about, you can try to mitigate. So threats are things that, if you're considering, for example, you're going to you decide Russia is your place to sell wine. Well, you've got big threats on the political side right now, of course, more than ever. We've also have all kinds of threats working in Russia. You can make a lot of money there, but think of the political uncertainty, the crime, all kinds of stuff that's there. So that's what your threats are, things that you cannot control, but they could damage your business. Opportunities are the same. They are things that you cannot control, but they could open up more business opportunities for you. For example, again, going to Russia, people pay a lot of money for stuff. So they have a huge wealthy class, and they buy the finest wine. So you could say, I'll put up with these threats because I can make a ton of money there. You could have a shift in demographics. More people want to buy your product at a certain age, and that country has that. Or a shift in economic wealth, where all of a sudden people have more money, or the exchange rate has changed, so there's a greater opportunity to convert that currency into dollars to buy your wine. Any number of things. Again, the same questions you ask for threats and opportunities. It's just the difference is, do they open up a chance for you, or are they limit your opportunities for you? Okay, that's not super easy to do, but if you just work through it, the best thing is to start throwing stuff on there. Use the format like that. I usually do a SWOT analysis by on a piece of paper. I just list the things, then I put in the boxes, but just list them, and the book gives you the question to ask, and you have a case that tells you the answers pretty much. So I'm not saying it's easy, but it's there. The thing you will have a hard time is if you don't use the book, don't watch the lecture, don't look at the slides, and then just come up with stuff. It won't be that good. Nonetheless, send it to me. I'll go back to you. I'll give you thoughts on that, and we'll go back and forth until you get it right. Okay? That's the best way. Next slide is a SWOT summary, and here all you do is just say, you take the number one strength and highlight that against the number one weakness. Then you think about the number one opportunity and the number one threat, and you just kind of put that, because people really want to know that. Say, our best strength is we have this. Unfortunately, we don't have that, but we can think we can get it. We're going to be challenged by this threat in that market, but there's so much opportunity based on this, we can be successful. That's the story that people will stick in people's minds. You want to have all these things about the different bullet points and all the different ones, but the main thing is like, we have the best, tasting peaches in all of Georgia, whatever. There's a lot of competition out there, but we can overcome that with our pricing model, etc. Something like that. So that's the story that people like to will go with because they can remember it. Okay, so that all the slides for the first submission. You have very few. You have your executive summary, you have the idea, and then you have the business viability assessment and the SWOT. That's it. Okay, so that's due, November 13th. or thereabouts. So yeah, you'll be whenever that, you look on the syllabus and see when that's due. Okay, for the second set of slides, there aren't that many. The second submission is focused on a couple things. One of them is the competitor summary. So if you call up that slide, on the competitor analysis, the competitor analysis is very important because whenever you do a presentation or a business proposal to anyone, they're going to want to know if you understand the competition. If you don't understand the competition, they immediately think you don't know what you're doing, and they won't support your idea. So be sure you understand what your competitors are. When you in the wine business, you're going to be competing primarily against two elements. One, other exporters in that market, like you, and the domestic business. So, for example, if you're in Italy, your domestic competitors are going to be very, very strong. If you're in Brazil, your foreign exporters are going to be very strong because Brazil doesn't have a very good wine industry and Italy has a fantastic one. So your competitors, you don't need to do 12 on there like you see in the slide, but you have to do more than a couple because again, like I said, the wine business is full of information. You'll be able to find out exactly who competes in your market from outside and inside, and you'll be able to do that. Then you think, what do they sell in common? Which kind of bottle do they produce? The same varieties of wine that we produce? What's their target market, etc. This is really important. Anytime you want to do your own business, you need to know the competition. And these are this little table is exactly what you will want to know if you're selling, restaurants or sneakers or flower arrangements or you're a hospitality, whatever your business happens to be, you're going to look at these questions. So this grid really helps you in all things. And again, like I said, if you don't know this, people are going to think you don't know what you're talking about. So you really do have to know what your competition is like. So then you want to do at the next slide is just summarize it. What's your main competitor and how are they going to compete with you? And what are you going to do to overcome that? What's your mitigating factor? And that's what people want to say. We're going to this brokerage business. Unfortunately, Merrill Lynch is really big there, but we can beat them because we have a more personalized approach to our investment strategy. That's your competitor summary. No? Okay. Then on this next slide is a country fit for your business. This, I have a simple slide there, but basically I'm giving you a couple sites to look at on the World Bank, they're doing business in. You can also look at the CIA, has a great site. And then think about your information you developed in your research on the wine industry in that country. what I want you all to do here is to say, why do we think this country is good for us? How do you know that this country is good for our expansion of our wine business in that country? What gives us confidence? So you're going to look at these, and you're going to find out, how the people live there, their GDP, their spending ability, how much they spend, what the importation areas. There's a lot of data, but just something simple to say, how do people drink? Like, Portugal is the highest per capita consumption of wine in the world. That's important to know, right? Italy, they drink a lot of wine. But you have that data. Why do you think your business, your exportation of your wine to that country is important? And you'll base it on facts. And you have the facts right there. What's the GDP? Who buys? How old are these people? What's the deal? What's the wine industry like in that country? And just try to use that to convince. It isn't enough to say, "Oh, I think it's going to be great." You say, "I think it's going to be great, and here's why." Right? And I think that's the information is readily available, and you will always want to be able to prove to yourself and others why you think that new market is solid for your country, and your business. And also be aware that, say again, you go to Russia, and someone's going to say, "But aren't you worried about the local corruption practice in Russia?" You can't say, "Well, there isn't. That doesn't exist." It does exist. What have you done to mitigate that? What have you done to say, "Yeah, that's fine, but we know people there. We can get through that. We're going to have an ethical business. We can sell it at $100 a bottle, and we can make money." But you have to be able to support that, because someone will certainly ask that question. And then finally, you do a summary. Your summary of your business is a lot like your executive summary. You conclude a lot like you start, but with a little bit of a different, because in between, your audience has seen the different facts that you've shown them and support for your business you've shown them. So you want to say what your idea is, what you intend to do, and how you intend to do it, and then allude briefly to the fact that you've seen this great opportunity, this kind of stuff, and that you're excited about that and looking forward to developing your business in that new market or new country. So in other words, it tells what you're going to do, brings in a few of the facts that you've shown your audience, and then ends with some excitement and forward thinking. Because remember, at the end, you're trying to get somebody to approve this, right? Somebody's going to approve this, say your board, your management, your shareholders, your team, that you want them to say, "You know what, I'm fired up, let's go do that." So that's what your summary does for you. All right, I think that should cover it. Listen, like always, if you have any questions, let me know. Send me an email, whatever. We can talk it over. We can on phone or Zoom. And as much as you can, if you can send me what you're working on, I can always look at it and say, "Yeah, I think you're on the right track here." Or maybe, how about if you look at this a little bit? Do look at the lectures. Do look at the book. Do look at the slides. It's all there. So there's nothing not there. That it's all there. But so it's just kind of give it your best shot, okay? And the other thing is, don't wait to the very end. Go back and forth with me a bit earlier. It helps at the end. Even though we've gone through this, it's hard to get to the level of quality you need in the workplace if you don't go back and forth a bit with me on that. Okay? All right. Well, thank you so much. Hope that made sense to you. And again, please let me know if you have any questions or issues. Thanks.